So what's up, everybody? This is Dejan, owner of Tinae's Wealth Management and Credit Consulting, and today's video is about removing evictions in 2021. Now, this has been a really big, important topic of conversation for people that have been looking for mortgages or just looking to improve their financial situation. But before we dive into that topic, I'd like to ask if you guys could really step out and support the movement, which is my new book series, Budgeting and Money Management for Kids. This is a children's book series that I recently developed in order to give kids a lot of education on credit, finances and investments. So check those out. It's available on Amazon, as well as my recently published book, The Finance Alphabet. So check those out, and they are on Amazon. And then lastly, I also have my first three books, The Principles of Stock Market Investing, The Essentials of Good Credit, and Life Finances and Opportunity. Each of these are also available on Amazon, and I would love you guys could check those out. So hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and let's get into it. So when it first comes to removing evictions that are on your credit report, it's really important to first understand why you were evicted. So for many people that have these questions, I like to ask, were you a bad tenant? Were you delinquent on your payments? Were there complaints from neighbors? What was the specific reason that you were evicted? Now, upon understanding the reason that you were evicted from that unit or, wherever you were at, decide or find out who is actually reporting on your credit. Is it the original creditor, or is it a third-party agency that was hired to collect on their behalf? Now, for many people, they may see, that third-party agency that's on their credit. So what I like to tell people is when you see third-party agencies hired to collect on that debt, the first thing you want to do is send them a debt validation letter. And the reason I say do that first is because sometimes these companies are not legally, not within their legal right to really collect in that state on that debt. So it's always good to send a debt validation letter first, just so they can prove that they've purchased that debt and can collect on that debt legally. So always do that first. Make sure you put them in position to prove that. Don't just jump out of the gate and say things like, oh, I want to settle this debt, or what can I do to remove it? Put them in position to validate it first, and then you can move from there. That takes me into my next topic in terms of removal, and it's comparing your credit reports for error. Now, I know this is a really hard thing for a lot of people to do, but sometimes you have to sit down and analyze each of your three credit reports: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Now, between each of these three accounts, you need to be looking for specific details that could be incorrect. This could be the date that the account was open. This could be your payment history in general. This could be the delinquent or derogatory remarks that they have on the account, or just anything in general that just doesn't make sense. So look for discrepancies, look for errors, look for differences between each of the three reports, because I can guarantee you, if they cannot validate whether some type of information is correct, they will have to remove that account from your credit report. So make sure you're putting them in position to validate this information. So if you see anything that's wrong, circle it on your credit report, compare it to the others, send it to them and say, hey, I need this validated. If they don't validate it, you will see a change within 30 days. Now, this can take me into the next topic. Most people are going to have to negotiate your evictions. Now, I know this conversation sucks because so many people say things like, well, I feel like I shouldn't have to pay it because of XYZ. Well, let's also keep this in mind. You also signed the lease legally, and what a lot of people will do, they will take you to court. So I'm not saying that they will, but just keep that in the back of your head. I know a lot of people like to wait, and waiting sometimes to pay the debt isn't a bad thing. Sometimes they'll tell you that they're only looking for you to pay in full and not willing to negotiate. You may be able to wait, and they may budge in the future. That is a really big possibility. I've seen it many times. However, if it does get serious, or depending on who you are as a person, if they know you or like you, whatever, you could get some time. If not, they could take you to court. That's just a thought to keep in mind. I'm not saying they are. I'm not saying they won't. I'm just saying keep that expectation in the back of your head, because if you don't, it will surprise you in the future. Now, this also takes me back to my second point, heading into this one, is make the third party agency work. Most of them are not going to reply to your debt validation letter if they know they can't prove it. Put them in position to work. Don't just conform to the things that they're telling you because they're saying, hey, Anthony Hill, you owe $5,000 for 6 months of rent and we haven't received it. Here's your name, here's your address, and here's the amount that you owe. That's not validation of debt. That's just saying what my name is, where I live at, and how much money I owe. That doesn't count as validation. Do you have an actual lease agreement? Do you have something that I physically signed with my signature? Those are things that count for validation, not just necessarily someone's name and the amount that they owe. That's how they trick people into saying or validating that they owe the debt. So, again, this may take me into another point. Don't call them, don't argue, don't try to have these conversations over the phone to try to settle these things with these companies, because again, if you call them, you will validate the debt. And think of it like this. It's like talking to the police. When you know that something bad has happened and you have word on it, what do they say? You have the right to remain silent. Don't tell them anything. Hit them straight through the paperwork. That's straight mail. Let them handle it like that. The moment you pick up that phone and you call out to that institution, you're validating that you acknowledge that you know that something is about that debt, and they're going to validate that, and it's not going to come off within the next 7 years. So that's something that you want to avoid. I say this every day to people. So if you're dealing with evictions, go through the advanced method and analyze each of your reports. I can promise you, you may find something doing it that way. If that does not work, send a debt validation letter. If you need help with debt validation letters, my company can help you with that. Tinae'sWM.net. You can check that out in the description box below, where I always leave my website information if you want to get in contact with my team. So again, just to reiterate the key things to removing evictions heading into the new year. Make sure you're putting yourself in a position to understand why you were evicted again, because so many people have personal feelings or thoughts as to why that shouldn't be what it is. But just in legal aspects, you can't really refrain from these things. You know, you have to body the L, and you have to go about it the smart way to get it removed from your credit report. That's why I tell these things to people every day. That's why I post these videos. So don't think it's the end of the world. You know, you could have messed up, but there's always a way for you to rebound. Again, send debt validation letters to each and every single company that you come in contact with. Don't just pick up the phone trying to acknowledge that you understand that you owe the debt and that you're willing to work with them. All of those methods right there will validate the debt, and you don't want to do that. So again, people, make sure you're contacting them through mail. Do not pick up the phone. Handle everything straight through paper, and I promise you'll come closer to a solution. Now, I will be doing a better job at posting more videos on how to remove certain things. My next video coming up soon will be about removing payday loans from your credit report. So stay tuned for that next video, and I look forward to educating you all. Thank you and stay blessed.